Hi, T. Carlson here. I cannot tell you how much of my youth I spent playing the Street Fighter series of video games. So when I found out there was a documentary that was being made on the franchise, I knew it was something that I was going to have to watch. And now I finally have my hands on it. What we're looking at today is Here Comes a New Challenger, a documentary on Street Fighter. I'm going to unbox this release and share my opinions. Front cover's done in the style of a Super NES cartridge. Love the way that looks. There's our spine text. Back cover. Here's our disc. That looks very cool with a lot of classic Street Fighter characters. My problem, however, is it does not include the title of the film on the disc, so you might think this was an actual Street Fighter animation if you didn't know better. Here's the package with the art reversed. Here Comes a New Challenger details the origins and the gaming phenomena that is Street Fighter II and how it impacted the arcades and the lives of kids worldwide. It explores not just the video games, but the merchandise, the anime, the live-action movie, and more. Here Comes a New Challenger celebrates what made it special to a generation who still play it to this day. This deluxe championship edition features new deleted scenes, behind-the-scenes interviews, new audio commentary by Auden Sorley and John Linneman of Digital Foundry, in addition to a new featurette on the home ports of Street Fighter II. In my childhood, I don't think there was any arcade game more legendary than Street Fighter II. This was Capcom's little game that pretty much propelled them into the upper echelon when it came to video game development. This documentary looks at the history of the franchise, in particular Street Fighter II, but it doesn't skimp on the early roots of the series, looking at some earlier fighting games, as well as Street Fighter I, which most people seem to forget even exists. We look at all the various iterations of Street Fighter II, going from the initial release that was called the World Warrior to things like the Champion Edition, the Turbo Hyper Fighting version, the new Challengers port that incorporated several new characters, and finally the Super Turbo port that introduced the character of Akuma to the franchise. And it doesn't stop there. It also looks at a lot of the merchandise that was made for the series, including those little G.I. Joe Street Fighter toys from back in the day, the anime movie, the live action movie that starred the likes of Jean-Claude Van Damme, and even the not so well received American cartoon series based on the franchise, as well as a few things that came after as well. We even look at a lot of the other franchises out there that were competition for Street Fighter and what fans have thought over the years. We look at this documentary from both the fandom perspective and the perspective of people who worked on the game, which really goes to add to what's here. Someone who's a big diehard fan of Street Fighter games, they might not learn a whole lot here, but I'm a pretty big fan of the franchise, and I certainly learned a lot along the way, and I have to say, being a fan, this certainly kept me enthralled from start to finish. At 140 minutes, this documentary certainly is not a short film, but I don't think there was any point where I thought that it was dragging or felt boring. How much mileage you'll get out of this will probably depend on how big of a fan you are, but I, for one, was pleasantly surprised with Here Comes a New Challenger. Probably the only minor complaint I have is the filmmakers couldn't quite decide if they wanted this to be a documentary just on Street Fighter II or the Street Fighter series at large, because the stuff that comes after Street Fighter II really just gets a passing mention and not much more. But then, conversely, you have a lot of stuff on the anime, the Hollywood movie, and even a little bit on the American cartoon series. So it is all over the place, but for the most part, everything comes together nicely. I don't think Street Fighter fans will be too disappointed. Like most documentaries, this is a compilation of newly filmed interviews, vintage game footage, and some vintage filmed footage and the like. So understandably, some of the older footage may look pretty rough, but most of the newly shot stuff, and even most of the actual game content footage, looks very good. I don't have any substantial complaints with the picture quality here. We do get a lot of deleted scenes and audio commentary for the documentary, but my absolute favorite featurette on here is an hour-long featurette featuring the various home ports of Street Fighter II, which are tested by two of the men who worked on this movie. And it really is interesting to see just how they differ from console to console. My only complaint there is they didn't play the Game Boy version. That would have been interesting to see. So overall, if you're a fan of the Street Fighter franchise, Here Comes a New Challenger comes very highly recommended. You shouldn't be disappointed if you're a fan. How about you? Do you like the Street Fighter game series? Did you have a chance to check out Here Comes a New Challenger yet? If you saw this documentary, what do you think? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new videos. And make sure you give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm T. Carlson. See you next time.